During World War II, General Leslie J. McNair visited a European artillery unit, heightening the soldiers' anxiety about showcasing a flawless setup. As he closely inspected a cannon, he noticed the young private in charge looking particularly nervous. McNair broke the tension, asking, "Son, when was this cannon last used?" "Sir, about 2 hours ago, sir," the private stuttered. McNair then pointed to the cannon's wheels. "Then can you explain why there are cobwebs between the wheels and the ground?" Caught off guard, the private saw the cobwebs and quickly retorted, "Sir, our aim is so precise that we never need to move it." Typically stern, McNair struggled to keep a straight face before chuckling. "Well, make sure those cobwebs can handle the recoil next time you fire." During World War II, General George Marshall visited a remote army base to assess his troops' morale directly. Approaching a group of soldiers, Marshall asked a young private, "Son, if you had to choose, would you rather operate this artillery piece or write a letter to your in-laws?" Without missing a beat, the private responded, "Sir, to be honest, I'd rather operate the artillery. At least I know where the shells are landing." Surprised by the private's wit, Marshall pressed on. "All right then, tell me, what do you think is the secret to winning this war?" The private, answering confidently, said, "Well, General, I believe the secret is to keep the enemy guessing." "Guessing?" Marshall inquired, intrigued by the soldier's perspective. "Yes, sir," the private replied with a straight face. "For instance, they're still trying to figure out why you asked me about my in-laws." Marshall burst into laughter. "It seems they're as confounding to the enemy as they are to us." During the Korean War, General Ridgeway was known for always carrying a grenade as his personal symbol of readiness and aggression. One day, while inspecting a frontline position, he visited a small outpost manned by a few nervous young soldiers. As he climbed into the trench, one soldier spotted the grenade hanging from his belt. Eyes wide, the soldier turned to his buddy and whispered loudly enough for Ridgeway to hear, "Watch out! The general's brought his own grenade. He must be planning to start the party himself today." Ridgeway, overhearing the comment, chuckled and reassured them, "Don't worry, boys, I only use this if the coffee runs out." After General Ridgeway's comment, the soldier grinned and responded, "In that case, General, I'll make sure our coffee supply is the best guarded spot on the front line. We can't afford any explosive wake-up calls around here." One morning, General Douglas MacArthur was inspecting a Pacific base and saw soldiers working in a corner. Curious, he asked, "Soldier, what are you doing?" "Sir, we're setting up a decoy command post to mislead the enemy," replied a nervous private. "Interesting, but how will you ensure the enemy targets this decoy?" MacArthur asked. The private glanced at his comrades, and a sergeant confidently replied, "Sir, we're spreading false intelligence." MacArthur raised an eyebrow. "And if the enemy catches on?" The sergeant said, "We also pretend to frequently relocate our headquarters to add layers of confusion." Laughing, MacArthur said, "Layers of confusion. I expected you to say you'd mark the decoy with a big red X. Or with an old shoe, so if we forget the spot, we'll have new shoes." The private quickly added. MacArthur chuckled. "New shoes! If only my generals were as clever as you boys, we'd have won the war already." One day, General George Marshall was in his office, surrounded by maps and documents, preparing for an important meeting. His young aide, Private Johnson, entered with a sealed envelope, saluting awkwardly. "Sir, I've got an urgent message for you," Johnson announced. General Marshall raised an eyebrow and took the envelope. "Let's see it, Private," he replied, opening it to find a piece of paper with barely legible handwriting. He squinted, trying to make sense of the contents. "What in the world?" Marshall mumbled, bewildered by the message. Private Johnson leaned in with curiosity. "Sir, is everything all right?" he asked. Marshall held up the paper and said, "Johnson, this looks like a grocery list. Apples, bread, and... is that extra socks?" Realization dawned on Johnson, and he grinned. "Oh, that must be from Mrs. Marshall, sir. She always said you can't win a war on an empty stomach, or with cold feet." During World War II in the Pacific, Admiral Chester W. Nimitz, known for his strategic mind, was meticulously scrutinizing naval charts in the tension-filled war room. A young lieutenant enthusiastically presented what he claimed were the latest charts. After examining them, Nimitz questioned, "Son, are you sure these are updated? They look exactly like the ones from last week." Realizing his mistake, the lieutenant, turning slightly pale, was flustered. Nimitz, maintaining a straight face, then joked, "Does this mean we've been circling the same island for a week now, thinking it was 3 different ones?" The room, initially tense, burst into laughter. Nimitz added with a chuckle, "Let's make sure our ships aren't just sailing in circles, gentlemen. If we keep this up, we might accidentally discover Atlantis instead of the enemy." During World War II, while inspecting the battlefield in Burma, General Joseph Stillwell saw a young soldier fumbling with a map. "Soldier, why are you standing here with that map?" Stillwell barked. "Sir, I'm lost. This map has too many strange symbols," the soldier replied, scratching his head. "Where's your unit supposed to be?" Stillwell asked. "Nearby, sir, but I have no idea which way," the soldier responded. Stillwell pointed at the map. "You're here. Your unit's there. Go over the hill, past the big tree, and left at the large rock." "Thank you, sir. But how will I recognize the big tree and the large rock?" the soldier asked, still puzzled. Stillwell chuckled. "Don't worry, you'll know. If you see a smiling elephant, you're on the right path." "A smiling elephant, sir?" the soldier repeated, bewildered. "Yes, because only my soldiers would think of seeing a smiling elephant in this jungle," Stillwell replied with a grin. During World War II, General William Simpson was known for his stern demeanor and sharp strategic mind. One day, as he was inspecting a group of new recruits, he decided to test their quick thinking. General Simpson: "All right, recruits, if a soldier in the field sees a tank approaching, what should he do?" One nervous recruit raised his hand and said, "Sir, he should panic, sir." The general, maintaining his serious expression, responded, "Son, if you panic, the tank will run you over. What you need to do is show the tank who's boss." The recruits stared in confusion until General Simpson added with a rare smile, "Just walk up to it and say, 'Excuse me, I believe you're parked in my spot.'" One morning, as Admiral Nimitz was walking through the bustling corridors of Pearl Harbor, he decided to grab a cup of coffee from the officers' mess. He poured himself a cup and took a sip, but his face immediately contorted into a look of surprise and mild disgust. The coffee was absolutely terrible. Determined to get to the bottom of this, Nimitz called over the officer in charge of the mess and asked, "Who made this coffee?" A young, nervous ensign stepped forward and saluted. "Sir, I did." "Is there something wrong with it?" Nimitz looked at the ensign, then back at his cup, and said with a straight face, "Ensign, if this coffee was any stronger, I'd have to start saluting it." The young ensign, still nervous but trying to maintain his composure, replied, "Sir, I was just trying to give you a taste of the fleet's fighting spirit, in a cup." At a military camp, Dwight D Eisenhower, then a commander, noticed soldiers engrossed in a radio broadcast and approached to discover what had captured their attention. One of the soldiers, not realizing he was speaking to the highest commander, candidly replied, "Sir, we are listening to a general's speech. But honestly, his words are going nowhere. Nobody understands what he is saying." Eisenhower, maintaining a serious expression, nodded and asked, "So, who do you think would best replace him?" The soldier responded without batting an eye, "Sir, in my opinion, anyone who knows how to turn off this radio would be a prime candidate." After hearing the soldier's reply, Eisenhower smiled mischievously and responded, "Well, that's like the advice my wife often gives me, Dwight. Sometimes you need to know when to keep your mouth shut. Maybe I should apply that to the radio too?" In the midst of World War II, Benjamin O. Davis Sr. inspected his units. Hearing laughter near a camp, he approached a group of soldiers laughing around a table, drawn by curiosity. Noticing him, a soldier promptly stood and saluted, explaining, "Sir, we're playing Guess Who, guessing historical figures from funny descriptions." Davis, serious yet amused, decided to participate. "I'll describe someone. You guess who," he stated. The soldiers agreed, and Davis began. "This person is exceptionally good at flying over obstacles and defeating all expectations, even faster than the Army's delivery service." A moment of silence passed before a soldier yelled out, "Ah, General, that must be the super-fast pizza delivery guy in the camp." Davis couldn't help but chuckle, and then with a poker face, he delivered his punchline. "No, actually, it was supposed to be me trying to dodge my wife's to-do list on a Saturday morning."